Okay, let's talk about the quadratic formula. This is going to be a format or a way for you to solve any quadratic equation as long as it is in the format where you can see any of your A, B, or C coefficients, okay? You can sing the silly song to help you remember. It is going to be what I consider your safety net, meaning as long as you can see an A, a B, or a C coefficient, or all three, this will work. So we have the value of x squared plus 2 times the value of x minus 16 is equal to 12 times the value of x. We've got to make sure all of our a, b, and c coefficients are on the same side, and the other side of the equal sign is 0. So what I need to do is I need to move this 12x over, and I'm going to move it over by subtracting 12x from both sides. And this is just so I can get all of my a, b, and c coefficients together. So I'm going to bring down my x squared. And now if I do some quick math on my calculator, I started with 2, and then I'm taking away 12x for negative 10x. I'm going to bring down that negative 16, and then it's equal to 0 because I moved this 12 over here, so I have nothing left over here. I have it equal to 0. So now I'm going to get my a, b, and c coefficients. My a coefficient is a 1. My b coefficient is negative 10. And my c coefficient is negative 16. Now, if you are using the quadratic formula, there is no need to worry about finding a GCF. You are going to use the coefficients as they are. So we're going to start saying the song. So we're going to say x is equal to the opposite of b. The opposite of 10 is, negative 10 is positive 10. So we've got 10 plus or minus the square root of b squared. B is negative 10, so we're going to put in parentheses, minus, that 4 is part of the formula, so b squared minus 4ac. We got to put those in parentheses because we don't want it to look like one big number. So we've got 1 and then negative 16. So let's try to say this again. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And again, my a coefficient is a 1. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to type in this part of our quadratic formula because I want to make sure it is not a negative number. No, I am not typing in the square root yet. So I'm going to type in negative 10 squared minus 4 times a times c, and I get 164. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split and solve. So I'm going to say x equals 10 plus the square root of, well, I rewrote b squared minus 4ac is the same as 164. So I'm just going to write the square root of 164 all divided by, now I'm going to multiply and get 2. Okay, that's one answer. The second answer is going to be x equals the opposite of b, 10. And instead of plus, we're going to do minus the square root of 164. Because remember, that's what we said, b squared minus 4ac was equal to 164. All divided by 2a, and 2 times 1 is 2. All right, so now I'm going to do this. I'm going to take 10. So I'm going to type this in as a fraction. So I'm going to say 10 plus the square root of 164, all divided by 2. Is about, so I'm going to use that little squiggly line above the equals because I'm going to round. It's about 11.4. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to type in alpha y equals inner, and I'm going to do 10 minus the square root of 164, all divided by 2. And that is going to be equal to approximately a negative 1.4. So this is telling me that our parabola is crossing the x-axis at around negative 1.4 and positive 11.4. Okay, so it's not crossing at a whole number. And now I want to look at a word problem. It says a brick is thrown from the top of a cliff with an initial velocity of 12 meters per second. The function f of x is equal to the opposite of 16 times the value of x squared minus 4 times the value of x plus 50 can be used to represent the height of the brick after x seconds. How long will it take the brick to hit the ground? Okay, so if it's hitting the ground, that means that the height is 0. If the height is 0, They are telling you a y value. They're saying, hey, y is equal to 0. So if I drew a quick sketch here, so let's pretend that the cliff is here, and that's where the brick is thrown. It's going to kind of go up, and then it's going to come down, and it's going to hit the ground here. So these are seconds here, and then this is meters, because that's how they're measuring the y values. They're measuring them in meters, not in feet or in inches, okay? So this is where it's going to hit the ground, and that's where y is equal to 0. Well, if they tell me y is equal to 0 there, then they are asking me for the x value. They're asking me, well, what is x equal to when y is equal to 0 here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to type in my equation. I'm going to type in negative 16x squared minus 4x plus 50. Now remember, the C coefficient is telling me my y-intercept, so I need to adjust my window because going up to 10 is not high enough. I'm actually going to go up to 100, and I'm going to count by tens, and I'm going to see if that window adjustment does anything for me. Okay, so you can see it starts at a cliff, and then it kind of goes up, and then it comes back down. And I want to find that spot right there, that positive root, positive 0. That's where I'm talking about. I want to ignore this root over here to the left of the y-axis, because that would be when time is negative, and that's not going to be a reasonable answer for how long it takes it to hit the ground. So I'm going to do second trace, and I want to find an x-intercept. So I want to find a 0. So I'm going to hit option 2, and now I'm going to move my cursor down to as close to that x-intercept as I can possibly get it. And then I'm going to go left twice, and I'm going to lock in. And then I'm going to go right twice. That's back where I started. And now I have to go right from there. So I'm going to go right again. And it's okay if it disappears off the screen. You're going to hit enter again to lock in. And then you're going to hit enter to guess. And it is telling me that that is x is equal to, at that spot, 1.647 seconds. Okay, and it didn't tell me what place value to round, so I'm just going to round to the hundredths place. Okay, so it takes the brick 1.65 seconds to reach the ground.